I want to continue of my critique of the Communist Manifesto and the mistake that I found at the very beginning of it. I just started to read it again now, and right at the beginning I'm going to read you what it says. It says here, the history of all hitherto existing society is a history of class struggle. And then it identifies the classes: freeman and slave, patrician and plebeian, lord and serf, guild master and journeyman. This is interesting. In a word, oppressor and oppressed. So they're saying that the guild master and the journeyman are oppressor and oppressed, standing in constant opposition to one another, carried on an uninterrupted, now hidden, now open fight, a fight that each time ended either in a revolutionary reconstitution of society at large or in the common ruin of the contended classes. Okay, this was not at all the situation. Not at all. Is that there are various classes of people. There is a master and there is an apprentice. This is natural order, yeah? For somebody to learn from somebody who knows already, you have to have a master-apprenticeship relationship. You can't have it any other way. And so to think that there's some antagonism between these two classes, and again the journeyman is simply the apprentice who has not yet completed his journey to become the master, because it's an order of progression. And you only have an oppression of one class over another when there's no movement. It's not a movement from the one class to the other class. And a man should be able to move from firstborn to a school boy or girl through to the highest lady and gentleman, and in the end to be the king of the whole country. Okay, so it's necessary to get rid of any criminals who are standing in the way of this system. Okay, that's basically there's only two classes, as I said before. There's a class of true men and women working together, or there are the criminal classes who are conspiring together to steal from the from the normal people their ordinary due worth of their labours, I suppose, and their land and their buildings and everything really, their cars. They want to take away everything and for it to be theirs only. Okay. And so the World Economic Forum says, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. Yeah, you see where its ultimate conclusion is in this divided them and us situation. The criminal classes and the ordinary people. That's all for this video. Okay, reading from Marx again. In the earlier epochs of history, we find almost everywhere a complicated arrangement of society into various orders, a manifold gradation of social ranks. In ancient Rome we have patricians, knights, plebeians, slaves. In the Middle Ages, feudal lords, vassals, guildmasters, journeymen, apprentices, serfs. In almost all of these classes, again, subordinate gradations. Okay, now to look upon the world, which Wherever you look, it's like this. Wherever, you can go to the ancient Mayans who the Native Americans, the Druidic culture that predated Christianity, the ancient Greeks, the Babylonians, the Hindus. Wherever you go, you'll find this complicated arrangement of levels of gradation on the great chain of being, because it's a journey. The great chain of being is a journey. And the only corruption you will find is if there's anybody standing in the way. And so, for example, if you want to become an apprentice at something, some art, and you go to a master and say, I want to be your apprentice, and he just says, go and talk to the human resource department. This is standing in your way, you understand? And this is a criminal act, basically a criminal act. And so where there are people standing in the way of young people wanting to learn and become apprenticeships and do what they call to do, this is what we call a calling. A person, everybody has a calling, you know. Everybody's a specialist. This funny thing about society, everyone's a specialist. It was a Maori man who said this to me in New Zealand. He said, every man is a specialist. Okay. And even in the old Maori culture, there were specialists. There were those that made wakas, canoes. There were those that made houses. There were those that did carving. There were those that worked in stone, very hard, the material to work. They didn't have iron, so they had to work stone, polish it forever. There were different tribes also specialized in this, so there became specialist tribes that if you wanted to get your greenstone adze, this is the equivalent of a modern day sword in the Maori people, then you had to go to a certain tribe that worked the greenstone. You know, they developed this over years, and so there becomes a specialization. And it's a natural order. You can't organize this. If you try to organize it, you just get in its way. And so everybody who's standing in the way of a young person leaving school wanting to take on some kind of profession, some art, to learn some art, he shouldn't have to apply, you understand? He should simply go to wherever it is that you go to say, I'm here, where's my master? And you should be given a master. Next day you should be at the work working, yeah? It's that simple, really. And anything that's become more complicated than that has destroyed the natural order of society. Okay. Now, it's just a fundamental understanding of the truth of this. The mistake of Marx, the thing that all the class structures must go, and to understand that the class system is a natural order, but there cannot be anything preventing you from entering it. You know, Jeremy Corbyn wanted to be part of the Labour Party, and they stopped him. You understand? They stood in his way. That's a criminal act. Now, there should be a way that Jeremy Corbyn should just go to the king and say to the king, whose only job is to pass judgment, say to the king, this is wrong. And then the king simply beheads the people in the Labour Party that did this, that gets rid of them forever, shows the people that you can't do this, sets a good example, and then order is restored, and now we have nobody standing in our way. But because all these people have been allowed to stand in everybody's way, they've managed to purloin all the fruits of the productivity that's left. There's not much productivity at all, because people can't cope with this. They just can't go to work. They can't stand it, yeah? And so the whole order, fake order, is crumbling, and the natural order wants to reassert itself, and it can only reassert itself by understanding where we went wrong. Okay, now where we went wrong was to industrialize to the extent that we industrialized. There's no mistake in making good tools. Good tools are always useful. Yet the people the tools should be made for the people, not the people for the tools. Okay, so you shouldn't make a factory and then try to put people in it. No, you should. The people working should decide that there's a better way of doing this, and we want to do it this way. So we will make a new tool. Now, the guilds were there to allow this process to take place. So, for example, if some guild of physicists was in existence, when the physicist came along and said, "Hey, look, I just found an interesting thing. If I mix these two chemicals together, or put these two elements together, we get a nuclear explosion. Yeah, isn't this great?" And then the guild masters have to come, because these are the wise elders, have to say, "No, man, this is terrible. You're supposed to use your gifts for the benefit of mankind, not to destroy everything." Okay. So if we'd had guilds, then there would be no atomic bomb. If we had proper guilds, there would be no weapons of mass destruction. Okay. No weapons where people's homes can be blown up and people's bodies blown apart, that you can kill 30 people in one explosion that you don't even touch. You send some radio controlled weapon in and it does it for you. It's evil, yeah, it's evil. And any group of people who come together, organize themselves together and think that they can wage this kind of war against ordinary people, well, something really, really, really bad is going to happen to that group of people. And the culmination of this is what's gone on in Gaza, because the whole world has watched horrified that these people who make these weapons have gone and done this. These are all culpable. All the people who have built and supplied weapons that have been dropped on the Gazan people, these all ought to crawl into a hole in the ground, because their karma is going to come on their head. That's all I can say. These people are finished. You can't do this. And nature will take care of them. You know, there were times before the fall of the suicide of empires. What happens is, in nations, is there's a special sign that nature puts into the universe. And this is that people pour gasoline over themselves and burn themselves up as a protest. Okay? This is a sign to say, the nation is finished. It's the end. Okay, and if you have a look at the history of this, it's called immolation. If you have a look at the history of this, you'll see the Buddhists did it in South Vietnam. Okay, and shortly after that, the man in charge and his cohorts were assassinated by the Americans. Okay, and that was the end of that nation, if you like, and a new nation was born after that, South Vietnam. Now, of interest is you'll see that this also happened as a sign to the Americans in America in the 1960s, okay, the time of the Vietnam War. So the Americans were given the sign also. They also had to get the hell out of there, yeah. And probably it was the end, yeah. Kennedy was assassinated and that was the end of it, okay. There's another sign going on now, another sign, and that is people are immolating themselves in America in front of the Israeli embassy, okay. I don't know if you seen the news of that recently. 2 cases, one just a few days ago and one in December. And so this is a sign, it's all over. It's all over for the Americans, it's all over for the Israelis. The American-Israeli Empire is coming to an end. And the immolation is basically the sign that proves it. Yeah. Now, the signs of nature are an interesting thing, because if you observe the signs of nature, then only good things happen to you if you're aware of them. And I'll tell you a little story this morning. I was messaging somebody on my phone, and I caught something that flashed out of my eye, and I looked around, and I saw this bird go up my window and down again. And I went and had a look. Oh yeah, I said, oh, it's a blackbird. Yeah. And I walked away again. I didn't do anything. And then another one, its partner went up and down across my window. Okay. Oh, I've got to fly. I've got to fly. See, I know what these mean. I take notice of the signs. And the word just came to me. I mean, I didn't think it. I said, I have to fly. To fly means I have to move somewhere quickly, okay? So I immediately stopped what I was doing. I went, put my hat on, put my coat on, got my scarf on, thought, oh yeah, I need some shopping. What do I need? Yeah, I'll go shopping, get some food. And so I got my bag, and I went out the door, and I noticed it was the nicest day. There was a few clouds in the sky, a bit of blue sky, a bit of cloud, you know. And so I walked all the way to the shop, which is like half a mile, something like this. And as I approached the shop, there was a little bit of, I could see a little bit of rain starting in the puddles, but I couldn't feel it on me. I didn't feel any rain on me. It's funny that you can actually be in the rain and not actually be hit by it. It can be just moving ahead of you. Yeah? And so I went into the shop. I didn't think about it. I went into the shop and I started to get the food that I wanted to buy. And then I went into the queue, and the queue was long. There was a few people in the queue. They were all old people like me. And they all had quite a few things in their basket. So I had to wait in the queue a little bit. Normally it's just young people, one or two, and I'm in there. I'm out straight out. And now I'm standing in the queue looking out the window, and the sky opens and the rain comes down. If you've been out there walking to the shop, you would have been finished, yeah? I watched it come down, I thought, this will be interesting. Is it going to stop by the time I've got to the till and paid for everything? And I get to the till, I pay for everything, I turn around, the rain has stopped, just stopped. I walk out the door and the sun bursts into the sky, and I'm walking along the street in a wonderful day. If I hadn't actually looked out the window and noticed it, I wouldn't have known that it rained. You know, I was protected from this. You know, when I was on my journeyman years, to get the position I have on the great chain of being in nature as a prophet, if you like, as a prophet, I had to walk around England without a sleeping bag in like November. It was really, really cold. And, you know, I never saw any rain. The only time it actually looked like it was going to rain, I was walking through a field, because I was just walking with a bag on my back. I was walking through a field, and it was dark, getting dark. All I could see was silhouettes of the trees and that. And I started to run. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get soaked. And then I looked, and just coming into view, there was the sign of a wooden cart, an old ramshackle wooden cart with wheels and, you know, a flatbed cart, farmer's cart. And I just stopped. And I got under the cart, and I made my bed under the cart, and I went to sleep, and here I was, you know, it was raining, and I was dry under the cart, and that's the only time I nearly got wet. Otherwise, the clouds just moved around me and followed me around, and I was dry the whole time. I couldn't believe it, really. And so nature can look after you in a most unusual way. And it can also destroy you in a very profound way too. So if nature has no use for you, it could make you immolate yourself. Yeah, it could make you do something like that. Fortunately, I have the internet, and I can make these videos and so on. And so I can find some purpose and function in life. If you can't do this, back in the 1960s, you weren't able to do this. And the only way for people like me to actually make any difference in the world was to do silly things like immolate themselves. So whilst we have the internet, it's quite good really that people like You and I probably, because I very much doubt that anybody watching the video at this point isn't on the same journey that I've been on. My journey is long and arduous and very enjoyable. Through many levels on the Great Chain of Being, for 20 years I walked, after having what people call the born again experience, which isn't really, it just puts you in the light, that's all, for a time. After having that experience, I've been 25 years nearly on that journey to higher and higher levels on the Great Chain of Being. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Yeah, the higher you go, the more profound your life becomes. And to die at an old age, having lived a profound life, what more could a man ask for? Thank you very much for watching.